Chapter 6. Demonic Attachment and Strength. Years ago, on one of my trips to Hong Kong, I visited the walled city. This city within a city consisted of a tangle of shops, small factories, and residences inhabited by druggies, with wires and water hoses in dangerous proximity to each other, carrying stolen electricity and water. This city has now been torn down, but in its heyday it was truly unique. Darkness, dampness, and dirt were everywhere. The smells were awful. It seemed like a fitting place for the thousands of heroin addicts, fugitives, prostitutes, and their pimps, plus their customers, who lived and worked there. The walled city was one of the darkest, filthiest places in the world. As we walked, I thought, I've never seen so much garbage in one place. Then I became aware of another kind of inhabitant of the walled city. Rats. They scurried back and forth across our path with little fear of us. This was their territory, not ours. But where garbage abounds, one is certain to find rats. My experience in the walled city is a parable of what we face when dealing with demons. The dank, dark, garbage-filled setting of the walled city provides a picture of the kind of place demons like to inhabit. In the city of darkness, rats were rampant because garbage was abundant. Similarly, inside a human being, emotional or spiritual garbage provides just such a congenial setting for demonic rats. When the dark city was torn down and the garbage disposed of, the rats could not stay. The solution to the rat problem in the walled city, then, was not to chase away the rats. It was to dispose of the garbage, and in fact, the whole city. So it is with demons. Wherever emotional or spiritual garbage exists, demonic rats seek and often find entrance. The biggest problem is not the demons, it is the garbage. Demons are most frequently attached to damaged emotions or sin. If there is sin, it is usually the result of an attitude stemming from emotional damage. Knowing this, I looked for and deal with the emotional problems and gently lead the person to deal with any resulting sin, such as unforgiveness, without necessarily calling it sin. I approach things in this gentle way for at least two reasons. One, I believe it is a more realistic approach than the frantic search for sin that has become standard, and two, I believe it is both untrue and damaging to imply, as many people do, that it is the sinfulness of the person that has caused the demonization. It seldom is. However, it is important to mention that demons come to live inside people by permission that has been granted to them. Once inside, all of the power and creativity they wield originates in the person. This means most, if not all, of their power is stolen from us. When we deal with the garbage, we take back the power they have stolen. What a glorious reclaiming that is. Two conditions of power. Demons cannot live in a person unless two conditions exist. One, they have discovered an entry point, an emotional or spiritual weakness through which they can enter. And two, they have a legal right, a right that accords with the laws of the spiritual universe that allows them to be there. Both are provided when the host person does not deal with the sins, attitudes, and behaviors mentioned in Chapter 3. Ignoring such problems litters the passageways of a person's being with trash, the garbage that attracts the demons. Failure to honestly face and handle sins and unhealthy attitudes weakens a person's system, giving demons an entry point, and wallowing in the sins and attitudes gives them a legal right to be there. For example, a man I will call Jim was hurt badly as a child by many adults. His grandmother and a hired man regularly beat him. The latter sexually abused him as well. Jim's natural and understandable reaction was to be angry at them and others who had mistreated him. When Jim came to me for ministry at about age 45, a jumble of hateful emotions seethed inside of him, and sometimes erupted into incidents when he would lose control and beat his wife. Intense guilt and remorse followed, accompanied by extreme frustration over his lack of self-control. Jim's violence had ruined 3 previous marriages, and his 4th appeared headed for divorce as well. He was angry at himself, angry at his abusers, and angry at God, and he could find no relief. Though Jim's childhood reactions were normal and, to some extent, necessary for survival, Retaining them had weakened his system and given a demon of rage both an entry point and a legal right to live in him. The festering wounds in his emotion and spirit provided plenty of garbage for rage and a host of other demons to feed on. As long as Jim did not deal with these attitudes and did not forgive those who had hurt him, rage and the others, anger, bitterness, resentment, and depression, had a strong grip on him. Since I do not like to deal with demons when they are strong, I worked with Jim to heal the wounds and thus weaken the demons through inner healing. I asked the Holy Spirit to take Jim back to one event after another, to allow him to feel again the hurt he felt as a child and to experience the presence of Jesus, who protected and helped him to survive in each event. Under the power and guidance of the Holy Spirit, I led Jim to see his abusers as victims themselves. He was enabled to understand the truth that he was not bad or guilty or deserving of the abuse, and he was guided to forgive those who hurt him, as Jesus had forgiven those who hurt him. In the process, Jim was also able to forgive himself for not being able to gain control of the turbulent emotions that had pushed him to assault his wives, as well as a brother. He also forgave God for letting these horrible things happen to him. It was only after we had done this internal work of getting rid of Jim's emotional garbage that I challenged the demons. By then, the spirits which had pushed him so often to violence had become quite weak. As Rage commented, "Oh, I'm in trouble now." Jim had no one left that he had not forgiven. No more anger, bitterness, resentment, or depression at his grandmother, the hired man, himself, God, or anyone else. So the demons had no more garbage to feed on and could not offer much resistance when commanded to leave. Both the entry point and the legal right had been taken from them. When the garbage was dealt with, the rats were easy to get out, and those rats will be easy to keep away unless Jim opens himself up to them again by lapsing into the harmful attitudes that allowed them entrance before. They will not be let back in if he gives them no permission to enter. 3 types of demons. A variety of factors contribute to the strength of the grip a demon has on the person in whom it lives. Some demons appear to be inherently stronger than others. Occult demons and those coming through inheritance, for example, seem to be inherently stronger than those attached to emotions. Some of my toughest battles have been with demons of Freemasonry. Likewise, those invited consciously or empowered through cursing seem to have a stronger grip than those picked up during life experiences. Furthermore, demons that enforce compulsions usually seem to be stronger than those attached to emotions. But all are treated in the same way, and none is a match for Jesus. One indication of a demon's strength is how much control of the person he is given permission to take. At the weaker end of the scale, many demons do not seem able to exert anything approaching control. They have to be content with harassing the person. It all depends on the amount of control the person continues to allow and the inherent strength of the demon. Let's look at the 3 types of demons that carry different levels of strength. Number 1, weak spirits. Some spirits are weak because the inner healing work a person has done has released the demon's original power. For example, a woman who was invaded by a spirit of fear when raped may still experience a surge of fear whenever she encounters a man who reminds her of her attacker, or whenever she recalls the rape or hears a report of one in the media. But through counseling and her own spiritual growth, even if it has not included deliverance ministry, she may have dealt with the issue enough to decrease the strength of the demon so that it barely bothers her at all. Number 2, medium strength spirits. On the other hand, another rape victim who contracted one or more demons, such as anger, fear, or shame, during the rape, but has not yet worked through her emotions, may occasionally experience being out of control. She may find that while disciplining her children, she gets carried away by her anger and over-disciplines them. Or she may find herself overcome with a disturbing mixture of emotions for no apparent reason when her husband makes love to her. Or she may find herself compulsive about her need to bathe, especially after sexual intercourse. In such a case, her demons may carry a medium-sized strength and be able to exert a measure of control over her at certain times and in certain situations. This person may be puzzled by her lack of self-control, but not enough to suspect demonic interference. The hurts of her past gave the opportunity for a demon to enter, and it is the demon's ability to influence her behavior that pushes her out of control. Notice the sizable difference between the amount of demonic influence in this example and that in the first. This second rape victim has not dealt with the resulting garbage. Each woman may have experienced the same degree of invasion initially, but the grip of the demons was weakened in the first instance through the woman's dealing honestly and effectively with her damaged emotions. A person's inner healing work can significantly impact the level of demonization they experience. Number 3, occult spirits. Occult spirits tend to have a stronger grip than those attached to emotions, at least until the power of the curses and dedications have been dealt with. As an example of this, I had the privilege of ministering to a delightful pastor's wife I will call Lori. She was in her mid-30s. Her father and mother had been involved in Freemasonry for most of their lives. Lori had belonged to Rainbow Girls, an affiliate of Freemasonry, as a teenager. When she became a Christian, however, her involvement waned, not because she knew the danger of involvement, but because she found her Christian activities more meaningful. After we had worked with Lori for about 25 hours over the course of a week, she was finally free of the spirit of Freemasonry and the several dozen other spirits the head spirit had invited in. She was so changed that her husband declared, "I have a brand new wife." As Lori compared her new self to her old, she was able to pinpoint areas in which demons exerted a disturbing amount of control over her. For example, she said that for the first time in her life, she could think clearly. Lori is now able to work toward loving herself, whereas previously even the thought of self-love was unimaginable. Along with the ability to love herself has come the capacity to appreciate, love, and make friends with her 3 children. She also has stopped resenting her husband and his ministry, and instead endorses and gives herself to it. For the first time in their marriage, Lori can accept her husband's love and give herself fully to him. Lori is truly a new being. Before her deliverance, Lori was able to fool most people into thinking she was okay, but those who were close to her saw her unhappiness and sense of unworthiness. These feelings seemed to stem from the control the spirit of Freemasonry and its friends were able to exert over her. Lori had not experienced the kind of childhood abuse that causes others great problems, but she did have feelings of abandonment by her parents. The garbage in Lori's life accumulated as she climbed the ranks in Rainbow Girls. Since her parents were also in Freemasonry, she had inherited spirits of Freemasonry and knew nothing of their presence in her. Probably for that reason, they were able to continually exert quite a bit of control over her. Multiple names of demons. Since demons are usually attached to emotions, they commonly have names related to their emotional base. These are what we call their function names. In dealing with demons through inner healing, as I do, see more on this in Chapter 7, it is most useful to know their function names, since it is those names that indicate the emotion or attitude in need of correction to weaken and evict the demon. Demons operate most often in groups, seldom singly. They are organized hierarchically, however, with one leader in charge of each group. My practice is to discover the head rat, and by the power of the Holy Spirit, bind it to all demons under its control. This enables me to deal with the entire group at the same time because the head spirit speaks for all of them. However, there is usually more than one group of spirits in the person, with a head spirit over each group that has power equal to that of the other heads over other groups. It is usually possible then, once each group has been bound to its head spirit, to bind all the groups together. Here is a selection of the names you might find in typical clusters. Note that there is repetition. I have used italics for the names of demons that usually head a group, and so a long list is about to follow, and the first one in each bullet point is the head, and I will just do this each time there's a new bullet point. Death, suicide, murder, death wish, infirmity. Shame, guilt, deception, lying spirits. Rage, anger, bitterness, resentment, depression. Fear, worry, anxiety, panic, terror, fear of fill in the blank, for example, rejection, pain, dark, being alone, being outdoors, heights. Hate, revenge, murder, self-hatred. unforgiveness, anger, bitterness, resentment. Rebellion, stubbornness. Rejection, self-rejection, fear of rejection, abandonment, neglect. Worthlessness, inadequacy, unworthiness, insecurity. Performance, perfectionism, competitiveness. Darkness, torment. Deceit, lying. Destruction, violence. Confusion, frustration, forgetfulness. Legalism, criticism, condemnation, judgmentalism, fault-finding. Lust, adultery, fantasy, perversion, pornography. Rape, violence, abuse. Depression, anger, bitterness, resentment. Control, manipulation. Loneliness, aloneness. Doubt, unbelief, skepticism, intellectualism. Pride, arrogance, vanity. Disappointment, frustration. Competition, insecurity, pride. Infirmity, sickness, may be a specific disease such as cancer, diabetes, arthritis, or the like. Blasphemy, cursing, mockery. In addition to such emotion demons, other demons encourage compulsions and addictions. These may go by such names as addiction, compulsiveness or compulsion, control, domination, possessiveness, performance, pleasing others, intellectualism, need to understand, rationalization, religiosity, ritualism, doctrinal obsession, legalism, lust, sexual impurity, adultery, pornography, sexual fantasy, lust, homosexuality, lesbianism, masturbation, obsessive, alcohol, drugs, nicotine, gluttony, anorexia, bulimia, caffeine. Occult and cult spirits, including those of false religions, are another category of demonization. Again, these often can be quite powerful. Some to look for are Freemasonry, Christian Science, Scientology, Jehovah's Witness, New Age, Rosicrucianism, Unity, Mormonism, Ouija board, horoscope, witchcraft, astrology, fortune-telling, palmistry, water witching, water dowsing or divining, Buddhism and various Buddhist spirits, Islam and various Islamic spirits, Hinduism and various Hindu spirits, Shintoism and various Shinto spirits, family spirits, which are spirits inherited through father or mother. 5 questions to ask. When it comes time to confront demons in a deliverance session, remember that the first order of business is to identify the garbage resident in the person that will be taken out to the curb through the work of inner healing. During this process, we also work to identify the names of the demons or groups of demons that are likely the resident rats in the person. So we consider the following 5 questions as we begin. Number 1, is there a lot of garbage? The amount and kind of garbage available for a demon to feed on is an important variable. If a demon is attached to a lot of hurt, it will be quite strong. When there is less hurt for it to be attached to, it will be weaker. If it is very weak, it can sometimes leave without being commanded to go, if permitted by its superior to do so. However, I once asked a very weak demon why it did not leave, given the fact that it had so little grip on the person. It replied, "I have not been allowed to." Number 2, is there a hierarchical group? Demons seem organized in hierarchical groupings, with one demon acting as the leader. In a typical ministry session, we first make contact with one of the group leaders, say, shame. When there is a spirit of shame, there is almost always a spirit of guilt, and spirits of deception and lying. They make up one group. A spirit of anger or rage may head another group. If one or both of these spirits are there, I expect to find bitterness, resentment, depression, since depression is almost always a form of anger, disappointment, discouragement, and frustration. Another group may be headed by one or more spirits of fear, with worry, anxiety, and panic making up this group. As I do the inner healing, I make a list of the head demons I suspect to be in the person. When it is time to challenge the demons, I refer to this suspect list. Among the emotion spirits, certain ones are more likely to be head demons than others. For example, if there is a spirit of death, it is more likely to be in charge of its group than, say, suicide or murder. Shame is likely to be in charge of its group rather than guilt. Anger or rage are more likely to be in charge of their group than bitterness or resentment. And any of these spirits can function alongside an occult demon. I have frequently found an occult demon, though inherently stronger than emotion spirits, to be approximately equal in power to a spirit like shame or anger once the curses and inherited rights have been taken away. In ministering to Jim, for example, I found an occult American Indian spirit that had been very strong, but was reduced to the strength of the emotion spirits once the inherited rights through dedications and curses had been broken. Number 3. What outside spirit has authority? Inside, ground-level spirits are under the authority of outside, cosmic-level spirits that are at a higher level. Demons are sent inside a person by higher-level spirits outside of the person, and apparently are not free to leave until the outside spirits allow them to leave, or are forced to let them go. Ground-level spirits can, therefore, appeal to higher-level spirits for help. For this reason, it is good to begin every ministry session by breaking any authority of the higher-level spirits outside the person. Number 4. How is the person helping weaken the demons? A person's action can weaken the demons inside him. Demons inside a person are weakened by that person's spiritual growth. When demonized Christians make choices that draw them closer to Christ, the demons lose ground. Several demons, when asked why they did not have a stronger grip on the person they lived in, have told me, "She's too close to Jesus, I can't get her." Worship, prayer, Bible reading, and Christian fellowship seem to suppress demons, at least temporarily. This is why demons interfere with worship, prayer, and other activities that bring us closer to Jesus. Choosing to deal with sin or emotional hurts seems to result in a permanent weakening of the demons attached to those problems. A very important weakening technique is prayer by others. Demons sometimes speak of the amount of protection God gives a person as limiting their ability to influence. Sometimes they speak of the number of angels assigned to protect the person. The combination of spiritual growth and prayer protects the person and impairs the ability of demons to do their work. Those who are in deliverance ministry require much prayer as they plunder the enemy's camp. Elizabeth Tiz Mahoney told the most dramatic example I have heard of prayer affecting the work of demons. She was a New Age devotee who had not only had a healing ministry, but also taught others to channel and minister healing in the power of the satanic spirits she served. Through the concern of some Christian friends of her mother, a prayer campaign was launched for Tiz. As a result, she wrote, "At first gradually, and then with increasing speed, everything I had worked so hard for began to deteriorate. The spirits became cold and distant. Channeling sessions became painful, leaving me sick and exhausted. I was becoming so weak that I couldn't hold down a job. My friends were shocked to find that I couldn't even heal myself. As I was the one to whom people usually came for help, I had no one to turn to. When I asked the spirits for help, they answered me only with silence. During a meditation, one of my guides spoke to me for the last time. He informed me that none of them could stay with me any longer. 'You belong to a higher authority,' they said angrily and agitatedly, 'one much more powerful than we.' 'Who is he? How will I find him?' I begged them to tell me. 'He is so powerful that we cannot even utter his name,' they answered. Weeks of silence followed. I was lost, confused, and frightened. Tiz now knows that the prayers of lots of people she did not even know crippled the evil spirits and led her to escape from their grip. Number 5, how is the person helping strengthen the demons? In a similar way, a person's actions can strengthen the grip of demons. The more a person gives in to temptations or emotions that are reinforced by the demons, for instance, the stronger the demons get. If a person gives up fighting the demon in a deliverance session because the pain or discomfort is so great that the demon gains strength and wins the battle, that demon gains strength and wins the battle. Likewise, if a person gets rid of a demon but later invites him back in, the demon comes in with comes in stronger than when he left and perhaps comes back with others. 10 levels of strength. I find it helpful to think of the strength of a demon's attachment to a person on a scale of 1 to 10. Level 1 represents the weakest attachment, and level 10 represents the strongest. The demonization cases that attracted the attention of the writers of the gospel all strike me as heavy duty. Those who came to Jesus in faith, but their demons were very strong. Their high level of demonization then would put at least some of them in the 9 to 10 category. However, we read that many people with illnesses and demons were brought to Jesus and he healed them all. There must have been many people within these groups who had levels of demonization considerably lower than those whose specific stories are detailed. The people in Jesus' day were well acquainted with demonization. Indeed, many among them, in addition to Jesus' disciples, were able to cast out demons by the power of God. What surprised them and attracted them to Jesus was not deliverance, but the authority and immediacy with which he freed people. It is understandable, then, that the gospel writers recorded only a few spectacular cases. My point? I assume that most of the demons Jesus and his followers encountered in believers were, like most of those we encounter today, at the lower end of a scale of 1 to 10. We may picture such a scale like this, with thanks to John Wimber and Blaine Cook for suggesting the idea. And then there's a scale of 1 to 10, with weak, medium, and strong. Again, our strategy in dealing with demons is to weaken any that are at medium or strong levels before seriously attempting to get them to leave. Thinking of that process leads us to see the scale as a kind of meter or gauge, with a needle pointing to the number, representing the level of the demon's strength. Our strategy can then be pictured as attempting to move the needle down from, say, a 7 to that of a 1 or 2 during the inner healing part of any given deliverance session. What follows is a rough characterization of demons at each level. Please note that demons that have been weakened through inner healing do not always fit these characterizations. For example, demons that were once at a level 7 or 8 and spoke audibly through their host at that level will tend to retain their ability to speak in that way, even when weakened to a level 1 or 2. These characterizations depict what we have observed of demons at each level before they were weakened. Levels 1 to 2. Demons at this level are very weak and have little control over a person, though they can be pesky in their harassment. They can make a person feel uncomfortable in worship or Bible study, affect dreams, apparently lower a person's resistance to illness, and perhaps contribute to misjudgment and confusion. When challenged in the name of Jesus, these demons may cause the person to cough, feel sleepy, yawn, feel pain in some part of the body, or experience mild choking. They do not communicate audibly, but through impressions and sometimes pictures in the person's mind. Demons at this level usually leave fairly easily and in a short time when challenged in the name of Jesus. Levels 3 through 4. At these levels, demons can exert more control over their host. They can cause uncontrollable anger, fear, and greater discomfort in worship, and at times they are accompanied by near panic and a strong desire to run. People with demons at this level frequently ask themselves, "Whatever made me do that?" They can experience an occasional disturbing incident that causes them to question their competence and perhaps even their sanity. Thoughts of suicide are not uncommon, nor are recurring physical ailments. When challenged in Jesus' name, demons at this level can act pretty cocky and arrogant. They can put up a bit of a fight if they are challenged before they are weakened, perhaps even shaking the person a bit, affecting breathing, causing confusion, or causing physical pain. Clients have described them as grabbing, as with claws, the throat, neck, or back of the head. Demons at this level are able to communicate quite clearly either to the person's mind or, if the person will allow it, through using the person's voice. It is fairly easy for the person to keep such audible communication from happening, however, especially if they are freaked out by the experience. If you attempt to cast out demons at this level, you can expect a fairly long fight. It is preferable to weaken the demons to a lower level first. Levels 5 through 6. Demons at these levels specialize in compulsive behavior. As the wife of a pastor whom we delivered of a demon at this level said, "Everything my husband did was compulsive." These demons have greater control over their hosts and for longer periods of time. If there are spirits of anger or fear or hate, the person's personality will be slanted in those directions. Allergies and other nagging physical problems may also be present. If sexual perversions, such as pornography and compulsive masturbation, are present, they will be strong and guilt-producing. Demons at this level may become daring and speak in the person's mind in a way that would indicate their presence if the person knew enough to look for them. They often try to convince their hosts that they are crazy. Strong thoughts of suicide and, for some, weak attempts to end it all are also characteristic. When challenged at full strength, demons at this level can put up quite a fight. Unless forbidden, they will cause bodily distortions and much pain in their attempts to get the deliverance stopped. They can throw people around and perform moderate feats of strength. They can also interfere with inner healing aimed at weakening their grip. They can make use of the person's vocal apparatus fairly easily unless the person works hard to suppress their vocalizations. If they interfere with inner healing, it may be a good strategy to challenge them, forbid them to cause violence, and force them to reveal what they are attached to. Once this is known, the person can be led to deal with it, thus weakening the demons. Levels 7 through 8. Rarely do we find Christians demonized at this high a level unless they have been involved in the occult. Demons at these levels are able to exert a lot of control over their victims, sometimes for long periods of time. At this level of demonization, a person may seem to have two or more quite different personalities. When the demons take control, it is common to observe a disturbing glaze to the eyes, as well as violent or other uncharacteristic behavior that the person may be ashamed of later. More likely, the person probably will not remember the event very clearly, if at all. If the person is a Christian, the frequency of demonic control will likely be lessened and the ability to assert control enhanced. At this level, if the demons are challenged at full strength, a lot of violence can result, even when the demons have been forbidden to cause it. No challenge at this or any other level should, however, be attempted without forbidding violence. Acting out also may take place at this level, for example, homosexual gestures or snake-like writhing. At this level, too, demons may strongly interfere as we attempt to weaken them through inner healing. Indeed, it may be very difficult to get clear access to the person's will, given the amount of demonic interference. The demons will, of course, be able to speak quite easily through the person's vocal cords, often without the person being able to curb them to any significant degree. Sometimes the demons will speak in another voice. Levels 9 through 10. Rarely, if ever, are Christians demonized at this level. At this level, the characteristics of levels 7 through 8 are all to be found and often escalated. That is, demonic control will be greater and occur more often. Challenging demons at this level at full strength is definitely not advisable. It may, however, be unavoidable since the demons may be strong enough to keep the person off balance a good bit of the time. Fasting, praying, and helping the person work on spiritual growth, strength of will, and root issues should be major parts of the strategy. Challenging the demons enough to get information from them should be tried as well. Missed opportunities for awareness. Westerners who are demonized rarely suspect that this kind of interference can exist in their lives. This lack of awareness is aided by a worldview that discounts the reality of evil spirits. Western churches, thoroughly infected by these same worldview assumptions, seldom give more than lip service to the existence of Satan and demons. Thus, demonic interference is almost always interpreted naturalistically, as an emotional problem, with the person taking full blame for the problem. This unawareness, accompanied by the practice of blaming ourselves for demonization, as well as problems unrelated to demons, plays right into the hands of the enemy. He is ecstatic when he can do his work without being blamed for it, or even suspected of being present. This is one reason he is delighted when people believe demons cannot inhabit Christians. In groups where that belief is held, he can go unnoticed, regularly and effectively influencing those who can hurt him most, Christians. Those who are demonized at lower levels may be unaware of the presence of intruders. They may feel pushed in negative ways from time to time, and they may experience interference in worship, prayer, and Bible study. Given the prevalent teaching in Christian circles, they will blame their sin nature and not look for a cause. Though these demons are weak and the harassment is at a comparatively low level, I find that the amount of self-condemnation generated in people harassed by weak demons to be disturbing. These individuals often become convinced that something is permanently wrong with them spiritually. Not infrequently, they question whether or not they are born again. It is true that we are to take responsibility for whatever our spiritual, emotional, and physical condition is. The scriptures give us no right to escape our responsibility by blaming Satan or demons. But the scriptures were written to people who knew the enemy's devices and were not intended to offer all the kinds of help needed by most American Christians today. Unlike the people to whom those documents were addressed, most of us are unaware of how the enemy works. Though we need to take full responsibility for what happens within us, an important prior responsibility is to know how the enemy works and what to do about it. At the middle levels of demonization, Western Christians usually miss indications of demons. Even though compulsive behavior and a lack of control can be troublesome, most Christians blame their sin nature or emotional damage and remain unaware of the reality of demonization. At this level, the person is likely to seek the help of a psychologist. But even Christian psychologists usually do not deal with demons. Instead, they usually work naturalistically, without either the knowledge or power it takes to free people from demons. If a person faces the problems demons are attached to, even though their psychologist may be unaware of their presence, the demon's power is weakened, and at least some of them may leave on their own if permitted by their leaders. Rarely, however, do they all leave. The stronger ones need to be challenged and banished quite pointedly. At the higher levels of demonization, a person may be out of control so much of the time that it is quite obvious to all that something is drastically wrong. Many of these people end up on the streets or in mental or criminal institutions. Some, however, are able to control themselves in public most of the time. Even at this level, though, our country's naturalistic worldview keeps most Americans from understanding the demonic part of their problem. Some people seem to have a greater ability than others to resist demonic influence. Even some with a comparatively high level of infestation seem to be able to hide their symptoms well. Others with a comparatively low level of interference seem to fall apart. I do not know why this is, but it seems to be related to the strength of a person's will to fight. But what enables the difference, I do not understand. While we need to be careful not to go to the extreme of blaming everything on demonization, we also need solid instruction concerning the important role demons play in sabotaging lives. It is heartening to see more attention being given to this subject by balanced Christian leaders. Addressing the reality of demons should not continue to be associated only with the lunatic fringe.